Hey everyone. Today's topic is Franciscanism, and I want to begin by saying that it's important because our school, Hilbert College, is a Franciscan school. So it's probably good to understand the concept of Franciscanism. So if, 5 years down the line, somebody's looking at your resume and says, "Oh, you're from Hilbert, that's a Franciscan school. What exactly does that mean?" Like, you should probably have an answer for that, right? And so Franciscanism, as we start out here, we have a couple different images I want to show you. First of all, you have on your left here the cross of San Damiano. This is an um, important piece to this whole story of Saint Francis of Assisi. Assisi is in Italy, and we'll talk more about Damiano in a second. In the middle, we have one of the oldest uh, pictures of what Francis might have looked like. Those are some nice size ears, if you agree with me. And thirdly, over here, you have you have the cord that the Franciscans wear, and it is a triple cord or three knots in that cord. That is something that we'll get to as well. Keep those in mind. First of all, I wanted to just talk about a couple quotes from St. Francis. What is the essence of Franciscanism? You've got to get into, so what did he say? First thing I want to say here is start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. That's a quote attributed to Francis. The idea is get your hands dirty. Get your hands dirty. You want to shoot for the stars. You want to achieve something great. Start with something simple. Do what is necessary, and then that will build on and get to what's possible, and suddenly you'll see that you are doing something great. Second quote I want to talk about here with Francis here is preach the gospel always and use words only when necessary. So what Francis is saying here is that we need to preach with our lives, not just talk about things. We need to preach. We need to tell what we believe in by our actions. People will know us. Uh, Jesus in the gospel says, um, "You will know. They will know you're Christians by your love." Right? And so love is the expression of who you are toward other people. And so this is what Francis picks right up on this with this idea of preaching the gospel isn't just words. In fact, it's the least important of the ways in which we preach the gospel. The most important are those when we live that out with our lives. And I think most people agree with that. The last of the quotes on this page says, "What could you do to a man who owns nothing? You can't starve a fasting man. You can't steal from someone who has no money. And you can't ruin someone who hates prestige." This is the essence of the Franciscan poverty that was so important to St. Francis. And as we kind of as we start to connect to things that we've already done in the course, I think St. Francis of Assisi and the Buddha could have sat down and had a nice cup of tea and really connected on a lot of stuff, because this could have been pulled right from the words of the Buddha, right? The idea that owning things, being connected to this world, doesn't do anything but create loss, right? That's right out of the Buddhist Noble Truths. The next thing I want to talk about here is this famous prayer of St. Francis. Not a lot of commentary on it, but I just wanted to kind of cover it. Uh, he says, "Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. And where there's sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is pardoning that we are pardoned, and it's in dying that we're born to eternal life." Francis, in this prayer, starts talking about the idea of opposites and about the idea of selflessness, the idea that to give is better than to receive. Don't let me focus on what people have done to me. How can I go and heal those people outside of myself? Where there's darkness, let me bring light. Where there's sadness, let me bring joy. It's a powerful prayer and very famous. There's a good chance you probably have heard it before. Now, the last one I wanted to kind of is a little longer, and I'm not going to go through it. You can read through this yourself. But this is the great ode to brother sun and sister moon. Um, this is a prayer that he prays so much of, but Saint Francis is known for his connection to nature, and one of the most powerful prayers that he's attributed to is this brother sun sister moon prayer, where he starts talking about the the brothers and sisters of the world, and he talks about nature as brothers and sisters. And we're going to see that in a minute. But he talks about brother sun and sister moon, brothers air and wind, sister water, brother fire, sister mother earth, and specifically, this is really kind of cool. Sister death. He sees death as a connection, as a relative. Now, why does he connect all these things in kind of a familial way, like in a family? And it is the essence of Franciscanism. And I want to, this is probably the most important slide to understanding what is Franciscanism and what is the basis for all of what Francis was based on. And it is basically this three parts here. It's not that hard. So if you're going to memorize something, this is it. First of all, he says that God is the ultimate father. As creator, God is the father of all things, living and non living. So, God, as the creator, God created everything. And since all things are created and come from the same father, right? All things that come, everybody who comes from the same father are brothers and sisters, right? So then we are all brothers and sisters. And he doesn't just mean you and me, humans. He says from the rock to the earthworm, from the tree to the dog, from the sun to the small child. All were created by the same father. Therefore, as family, we have a duty and an obligation to take care of each other. We are responsible for the well being of each human being, all living creatures, and all of nature. This is powerful stuff. And it is a spirituality that is the essence of what our school is based on. And, um, and I think that it's the idea of the Franciscan brotherhood and sisterhood, um, and why Franciscanism is the most powerful and most prevalent uh, Christian spirituality that exists in the world. So we'll keep going here. So I want to kind of start off talking about the life of St. Francis. And we'll do that by starting about how he was born with the name John by his mother when his father was out of town. His father, Pietro, was a um, was someone who was a merchant, and he was a clothing merchant, and he would travel from place to place. And particularly, he loved going to France. He loved the high end lifestyle, and he loved to be seen as important. And he was larger man. And so when he came home and saw that his wife had named the baby already, he said, "Oh no, no, no!" And he renames the boy Francis to you know to kind of tell everybody, remind everybody that he travels to France. And so this is where his name comes from. Now Francis grows up wealthy, and he's kind of small and not strong or anything, and obviously physically dominated by his overbearing father. He has a good set of friends, and because he runs with the rich crowd, they have parties, they love going out, and Francis Francis is like, I don't know about you, but like my group of friends, like there's always when we go out, there's always that guy who runs right over to the jukebox, and he's like putting in money, and he wants to create the playlist, right? And that was Francis. He wasn't over talking to the girls, he wasn't over buying the drinks, although he bought his share of drinks for his friends. He was the one who was interested in music and thinking about stories and that kind of thing, and he loved poetry, and he loved songs about knights and chivalry, the kind of the romance of war and that kind of thing. He loved that stuff, except that he was this little guy who wasn't going to be an awesome soldier, and we'll continue on that in our next clip.